Is everything up? A lot, sir.
The German military machine, a formidable enemy of thousands of planes, a sure weapon of mass destruction against a small and undermanned force. Yet the story of the RAF in the Battle of Britain is the modern David and Goliath.
Hello there, my name is Chris and a very warm welcome to my YouTube this evening. I'm taking a look at the Battle of Britain film, particularly one of the technical advisors on the film was Ginger Lacey. And we're going to hear some of the interview that he did somewhat later in 1978. Winston Churchill famously said on June the 4th, 1940, "We shall fight in France. We shall fight in the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight on the hills. We shall never surrender." Winston Churchill, 4th of June, 1940. Let's continue on and listen to an interview that Ginger Lacey gave. He was interviewed by Norman Tozer back in 1978.
Why do you think the British won, or why do we win the Battle of Britain?
Why did you win the Battle of Britain, do you think?
Well, I'm quite certain that so long as aeroplanes and pilots were available, we could never have lost it. Because we were not trained to think of being beaten. It never crossed anyone's mind that we could be beaten. If it really got down to it and thought about it, it was all too obvious that we could, but it never even crossed our minds that we could be beaten.
So it's men, machines?
Yes.
Men, it sounds like.
I think the men had a lot to do with it. The machines, to us, I mean, now all the people who are doing this analysis of the Battle of Britain proved to us we couldn't have won it because our machines were completely inferior. But they may be inferior in one way. You'd probably say top speed, but they can't be inferior in all ways. I mean, it must be better than the other aircraft in doing something, even if it's only flying slower. And if you can fly slower than he can, well, then it's up to you to make use of that one way in which you are better than he is. If you can fly slow, well, then you damn well fly slow, and if he's got to come down to your speed to fight you, well, then you'll beat him if you're better flying slower than he is. I mean, I read books now which says the Hurricane was not as manoeuvrable as the 109. Well, I know very well that it is, because I could manoeuvre it and did manoeuvre it better than the 109. 18 109s shot down with an inferior Hurricane's not too bad.
Can you remember, was the airfield ever under attack?
No, it never got attacked.
No, so the things didn't get destroyed. You got meals regularly.
Yes.
All that sort of thing.
I don't think that. I haven't any information. It didn't look as though the Germans knew we were using Gravesend. It never got attacked at all. And yet you have great showers of German aircraft flying over the top on their way up to London, but they never dropped anything on the airfield.
What about about the lighter side of life? Presumably, even did you live a monastic existence for the height of the battle, or did you manage to get away? And
Well, you went out nearly every evening down to the Leather Bottle or the White Hart in the town, and drank there until you got thrown out. I won't say closing time, because closing time didn't seem to matter very much in those days. And you woke with a average hangover. There were no wafts at Gravesend. We had the luxury of wafts when we got back to Kenley. But the local population thought we were gods.
they did.
Oh, yes. We were very lucky at Kenley, Gravesend, sorry, in so much as we had this civilian factory on the airfield, and they always used to rush into the shelters just as we were taking off for a scramble, and they'd be coming out just as we were getting back. And I must admit, we used to pull their legs to a certain extent. I'd call across to a pal of mine, "What did you get today?" And he'd sort of say, "Oh, only 4 Messerschmitts." "Did you? What sort of luck did you?" "Oh, not as good as that. I only got 3. Well, of course, the word would be round the pubs that we'd be shooting them down like flies, and we just couldn't buy beer or anything like that when we got down.
Have you got any particular memories, by the way, of any particular dogfight?
I don't know. The so-called dogfights, the aerial combats I had, which I have described ad nauseum, they only amount to 1 or 2, which are usually picked out for me by the person who's talking to me. They know that I shot down the Heinkel at Buckingham Palace. They know that, well, it has become known, of course, my first fight I shot down 3 aircraft, and 2 aircraft, 3 in the morning. And that gets talked about a lot. But if I pick up my logbook now and open it up at a particular date, and I see what I've just made an annotation, 109 destroyed or 109 damaged, I cannot recall any way what that fight was like. It could be any one of a dozen.
How long were you up in the air, and how long did the combat last?
I would say the average length of time that the flight took would be about 30 to 40 minutes, with the fight lasting literally seconds to a minute or a minute and a half. During that time, the squadron usually managed to get split up completely. There would be an attempt made by the person who was leading the squadron to get them all together again. He would sort of say, rejoin over, and get a call from control saying, "I've got no further trade for you, return to base." And then we would make no attempt to join up at all. We would each then navigate his own way back to Gravesend. Gravesend on a decent day was quite easy to find. You could see the river from miles away. And
what about Cloud? Presumably, when you got split up, you very often got lost in Cloud?
At that time, there wasn't all that amount of cloud. 1940 was a brilliant summer. You might be above a cloud layer, that meant you had to come down below it and find out where you were and set a course from there.
But very often your enemy was playing hide and seek if there was any cloud.
Could be, yes, especially if he was on trying to make his way back to France. Well, then he would would make use of any cloud that he could possibly find.
And your object was to make use of the sun?
Yes, that was to make certain that no one ever got an even break. He couldn't see you coming from the sun. But the chances of being able to manoeuvre yourself into the sun, taking into account the fact that you might be coming from a down sun position where your airfield was, if you were taking off, say, in the afternoon, the sun was to the south where he was coming from. It's the southeast he'd probably be coming from. you were coming from the north, so you were visible to him. To get into the sun, you had to go around behind him and probably make quite a long tail chase of it to stay in the sun. You used the sun if you could. It was preferable to use the sun because he couldn't search absolutely in the sun for where the trouble was coming from, and if you could make use of that, you did so. But if the chances were very, very, I won't say very, very rare, but you had to attack from whatever position you were in.
You survived, and a lot of people didn't. And you also, with one of the highest scores in the battle, must have had something that a lot of people didn't.
Yes,
what was it?
I had 1,000 hours flying experience before the war started. And that is one of the things. Also, to say I was trained when the war started. I'd got lots of experience. I also had a lot of luck. I was shot down, all told, nine times in the 16 weeks the Battle of Britain lasted. And when you're having your aeroplane shot down round you, I mean, twice I got out of it with burning from end to end, and once with no tail on it. When someone's done that to your aeroplane, you've got to have had a lot of luck to have avoided the bullets which mangled your aeroplane that didn't mangle you.
Can you tell me whether it was your ability to manoeuvre, your ability to master tactics, whether you were just a very accurate shot? What sort of components of the skills do you think that helped get you through?
That's a question I'm not certain of. I've never tried to split it down. I was a good shot. I'd been shooting ever since I was big enough to hold a gun. I knew my deflection shooting, because I was doing most of my shooting with live targets which were moving. I didn't do any sort of rifle shooting at targets which were not moving. I was well up on the theory of ballistics. I was done enough flying so that I didn't have to think, what do I do to turn left, or I threw an aeroplane around as though it was part of me. But I've never tried to give it any weighting as to what was the most important thing for keeping me alive. I just know I stayed alive.
Can you tell me how you get out of an aeroplane when it's been shot down?
Very rapidly. There's all these things which we had in the in the book, saying invert the aeroplane, undo your straps, undo your oxygen, undo your radio, and then slide the hood back and invert the aircraft falling out. You never have time to do that. It's just one panic ripping off of the straps which are holding you into the aircraft, back with the hood and out as fast as you can. There was one time I just pulled the pin out of the straps and the aeroplane bunted over and I was thrown straight out. And at that time we had about 3/4 of an inch thick rubber oxygen tube, which with no quick release pull-out mechanism. It was a bayonet fitting which held you firmly attached to the aircraft. That broke, actually, as I went out. The radio connection would pull out anyway. It was a quick release plug. But if you've got time to think about rolling the aircraft onto its back, well, then, in my opinion, probably it was not necessary to get out.
But is it like, I wonder if anybody's got any parallel experience, is it like when you're having an accident in a car, everything seems to slow down? You seem to have...
All the time in the world, yes. I think that is, your reaction do become very, very much quicker. Whether your thinking keeps up with your reactions is another matter. Your main reaction is to go and to stay alive, and if you've got to go, you go very, very fast. You can't come back and sort of say, I did exactly this and exactly that and exactly the other. You're keeping your life, and you react very, very fast under those conditions.
When that had happened to you a couple of times, what was it that you felt? I mean, did you ever feel afraid when you were flying?
Oh, yes, I felt afraid every single time I saw an aeroplane which I thought had black crosses on it. And I say, when I thought had black crosses on it, you would see little dots in the distance, and you'd wonder whether that was one of our own squadrons or whether that was a squadron of enemy. And you watched them until you could eventually distinguish what type of aircraft they were. And by that time, the fear had gone to a certain extent, because knew you were getting down to do the job you were trained to do. You were still very scared. At least I was still very scared, and I honestly don't really believe anyone who says he wasn't.
Yes, but it didn't stop you.
No, it didn't. It didn't stop me. I would have been more scared to pull out and let the others see me pull out than I would be to go on in.
Did you come down in the water?
No, I've never landed in the water. Once was in France before the Battle of Britain, and the other two times were over Kent.
What sort of reception did you get when you landed in Kent and places like that?
Well, I landed one aeroplane with its wheels up in a field which had these anti-invasion poles that had been put in to stop gliders landing. Well, I saw us, I singled out a nice little run through. These things landed without ever touching one of them, and the owner of the field was most indignant. He told me it was impossible to land in the field. I said, I agree with you, I've just done so. And so before they'd even managed to get the aeroplane away, he'd had people repositioning his poles so that no one would land down the line that I landed down. He would have been much happier if I'd hit one of his poles and killed myself than landed in the field without hitting one.
What were the sort of things that made you afraid? Was it afraid of having to bail out, afraid of fire, or what? Or just the whole damn?
No, I was just afraid. I'd never once again, I didn't analyse what I was particularly afraid of. I was more afraid on the ground while waiting to take off. I'd be waiting for that, the thing that really frightened me was waiting for that tannoy either to say scramble or the telephone to go. If the tannoy came on and no one spoke, sometimes it was given over a tannoy rather than over the radio. If the tannoy came on and someone was going and not saying anything, I could be sick before he'd had time to talk. My stomach just revolted and threw everything out. It was, not very nice to talk about, but that was so. Once I can get myself strapped into an aeroplane, that wasn't too bad. That's what I say. I didn't have butterflies in my stomach. I had vultures.
I really hope you found that of some interest. Ginger Lacey was an extraordinary character, and I thought it was interesting to take a look at the Battle of Britain film alongside Ginger Lacey talking, because he was a technical advisor on the film, and it was quite an iconic film back in the mid-1960s, or round about 1969 when it came out. Take the greatest of care and join me by subscribing if you can, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. All the very best. Cheers for now.